Welcome to NFL Nexus. You know, every year we get absolutely buried in mock drafts, right? It's all about who's picking who. But have you ever stopped to wonder what really goes on inside a team's war room? Well, today, we're going to forget the mock drafts for a minute. We are cracking the code. We are prying open the Buffalo Bills strategic playbook for the 2026 NFL Draft to get to the heart of the philosophy, the why behind the picks. And this, right here, this is the million-dollar question we're exploring. Because when you're talking about General Manager Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills, the past isn't just some dusty old history book. Oh no, it is, without a doubt, the most reliable, most detailed roadmap to what they're going to do next. So come on, let's dive into the mind of a GM and see what we can find. All right, so for the Bills to keep that Super Bowl window of theirs jammed wide open, they're staring down a classic draft puzzle. Think about it like this. You've got a jigsaw puzzle. It's almost finished, but there are a couple of huge, glaringly empty spots right in the middle. And to finish the picture, you've only been given a handful of pieces. That is the exact challenge the Bills are facing. How in the world do you fill these massive roster holes when you've got a very limited and very precious number of high-value picks to work with? Let's break it down. On the defensive side of the ball, they absolutely have to build up their depth at the linebacker position. Then you flip over to the offense and, well, there's a starting guard position that is basically screaming for a long-term answer. This forces a really tough strategic decision, you know? It's that classic GM dilemma. Where do you spend your most valuable piece of draft capital, that one coveted first-round pick? So let's start with that first dilemma, the linebacker spot. Now you got to understand, in the Bills' defensive scheme, the linebackers are basically the quarterbacks of the defense. They are the communicators, the playmakers, so having a strong, deep group there is completely non-negotiable. And look, the Bills have a fantastic starting duo in Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams. But you peek behind them on the depth chart, and it gets a little thin. It becomes crystal clear they need some fresh, developmental talent for the future.
Now here's the thing, while linebacker is a clear need, it's not exactly a five-alarm fire. It's not the kind of emergency that's going to send a GM sprinting to the podium with the 26th overall pick in his hand. Based on the team's other, more immediate needs, and maybe more importantly, their own deep-seated historical tendencies, a first-round pick here is highly, highly unlikely. Instead, the real action, the crucial hunting ground for the Bills' front office, that's going to be in the middle rounds of the draft. That's where they'll be looking to unearth a hidden gem.
And what's really fascinating here is the sheer variety of flavors they could be targeting later in the draft. It's like a menu. You've got everything from a lightning-fast kind of undersized coverage guy like Kyle Louis from Pitt, who can run with and blanket tight ends and running backs out in space. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have a big-bodied, old-school run thumper like Keyshawn Elliott from Arizona State, a guy who is literally built to plug holes and stop the run dead in its tracks. It just goes to show they'll have plenty of options to fit whatever they're looking for.
And this slide right here brilliantly illustrates the strategic fork in the road they'll face even in those middle rounds. It's a classic debate, isn't it? Do you draft for the modern, pass-heavy NFL with a player like Kyle Louis, who brings that absolutely essential sideline-to-sideline speed and those top-tier coverage skills? Or do you go after a very specific nagging weakness, like maybe your run defense on third and short, with a classic, powerful throwback thumper like Keyshawn Elliott? It's a fascinating choice. Okay, so we've explored the whole linebacker dilemma and the likely path to a mid-round solution. So now, let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Let's see how all of this connects to another, and you could argue an even more pressing need. Yeah, we're talking about the big guys up front, the offensive line. So the departure of starting guard David Edwards in free agency has left this gaping hole on the interior of their offensive line. It's like a missing tooth in a prizefighter's smile. It's just there. And yeah, they have internal options like Alec Anderson and the veteran Austin Corbett, but neither one is a guaranteed lock-it-in, sleep-easy-at-night solution for a team that has legitimate championship dreams. Anderson is promising, for sure, but he's totally unproven as a full-time starter, and Corbett is a savvy vet who, unfortunately, has been battling some really tough knee injuries.
This whole cloud of uncertainty brings us to the bright, shining light that is Penn State guard Olave Ione. He's a prospect that some analysts see as the absolute, no doubt about it, perfect solution. And this quote says it all with a capital A. He's viewed as a plug-and-play addition that raises the floor of the entire unit from day one. Let me tell you, for a team in a Super Bowl window, that phrase is pure music to your ears.
I mean, the argument for taking Ione with their first-round pick is incredibly compelling. This guy isn't some risky, high-ceiling project player you have to develop for 2 years. No, he is the rock-solid foundation you can build a championship offensive line on.
He thrives on moving defenders in the run game, he's technically sound and balanced in pass protection, and he could step in and immediately solidify a key position on this offense for years to come. It's about as safe a pick as you can make. So, here we are. We've laid it all out. 2 clear dilemmas and 2 very different potential solutions. On one hand, you've got the path of finding a developmental linebacker in the middle rounds. On the other, you have what looks like a surefire day-1 starting guard in the first round. It's a classic draft day showdown. So, which path will the Bills actually take? Well, to find that answer, we need to stop looking at the players and start looking at the general manager's own playbook, because that is where the real secrets are hidden.
Because if you look closely, history tells us, loud and clear, that general manager Brandon Beane isn't just up there throwing darts at a board on draft night. He has a distinct philosophy, a clear blueprint that he has followed consistently, year after year after year. And tonight, right here, we are going to decode that very blueprint.
First, let's look at his established approach to the linebacker position. The philosophy is actually pretty simple, but it is devastatingly effective. You find and develop starting caliber talent in the middle rounds, specifically rounds 3 through 5, and you absolutely positively avoid using a premium first-round pick on that position. For them, it is a non-starter.
And the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. This is not just some theory. It is a proven, undeniable track record of success. Matt Milano, an all-pro player, a cornerstone of their defense for years, was a 5th-round pick. Think about that. Their current starters, Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams, were both 3rd-round selections. This isn't luck, folks. This is a system. They know how to find incredible value here without spending big, and frankly, they do it better than almost anyone else in the league.
So, okay, we've seen exactly how Beane operates when it comes to linebackers. He's a master of finding value in the middle rounds. But what about the big guys up front? Does his philosophy of bargain hunting extend to the offensive line? That, my friends, is the million-dollar question we've been building up to. The answer is a number, and that number is 0. That's it. 0. That is the number of first-round offensive linemen drafted by general manager Brandon Beane during his entire time in Buffalo. Not a single one.
In fact, if you look at his entire draft history, the absolute closest he has ever come to using a premium pick on the O-line was taking Cody Ford at pick number 38 way back in 2019, and then Osiris Torrance at pick 59. Both of those picks were well into the 2nd round, which just reinforces his philosophy of not spending a first-rounder in the trenches. It is a hard and fast rule for Brandon Beane. So, we've looked at the evidence, we've heard the arguments from both sides of the coin, and now it is time for the final verdict. When you weigh the clear needs of the team against the established, undeniable history of the GM, what does all of this tell us about the Bills' ultimate decision in the 2026 draft? Well, it reveals a clear, consistent, and frankly brilliant team-building blueprint. It's almost like a 3-step process. First, you trust your amazing scouting and coaching staff to find and develop talent at positions like linebacker and offensive line in those middle rounds. Second, you save your most valuable assets, your first-round picks, for what you believe are the true premium positions, like wide receiver or pass rusher. And third, you watch a team win a whole lot of football games. So when you put it all together, while drafting a plug-and-play guard like Olavide Ione makes a ton of sense on paper, it really does. It goes directly against the entire grain of how this front office has operated for years. And in the NFL, history isn't just a good predictor, it is often the single best predictor we have. Which, of course, leaves us with one final, fascinating question to think about on draft night. Is a prospect like Olavide Ione just so good, so safe, so perfectly suited to a need that he could be the one player to finally force Brandon Beane to break his own long-standing blueprint? I don't know about you, but I absolutely can't wait to find out. What do you think they'll do? Let me know what your prediction is down in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, do me a huge favor and hit that like button, subscribe to NFL Nexus for more content just like this, and make sure you ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And one last thing, if you're looking for something cool for the young fans in your life, you can help support the channel by purchasing our coloring books. They're perfect for kids, grandkids, and hey, even adults. You can find them through the link in the description. Thanks so much for watching.